right, I want to turn to this story because a Duke University professor, an economics professor, mind you, usually they're smarter than this, he's got a brand new idea to solve racial inequality in America.
Good luck, Doc.
How do you like this? You just hand everybody a check that's black for $350,000. It would cost us $14 trillion.
I declare bankruptcy!
Think about that for a second. I mean, the overall size of our economy is somewhere around 22 trillion. So we're going to give away basically a whole year's pay, almost a whole year's pay. And that'll fix everything? I think we all know it wouldn't fix a darn thing. How many lottery winners do you think go on to have lots of money through their old age? Very few. And the reason is they spend it. They spend it right away, and they have no sense of how not to spend it because, well, they've never had to deal with that much money before. It's a classic tale. And you know the old proverb, right? The expression about teaching a man to fish, he'll be able to eat for life. Whereas if you give him a fish, he'll have a fish for a day. We need to think about ways to make sure that people have opportunities to access so much more. And it's not about handouts. This is what the left does not get. They think they can solve everything with money. Guys, stop being so materialistic. It's not all about money. It's about more meaningful stuff like family and education and work ethic and drive.
It's the best. I love it.
And if you can't ensure that kids are growing up with those values around them, then you're going to have a harder problem. I mean, I'm not going to deny that if you're African American in this country, there's a good shot that you got certain things sort of stacked against you, right? Maybe you're born into a family where you have no father. Maybe you're in the south side of Chicago where clearly, remember what we saw over the weekend with the teen takeover, where clearly you don't have a fair shot at anything because the streets aren't safe. Well, these are things that we can correct as a society. You know, there's all this talk about how there's so much wealth inequality between African Americans and white Americans. Well, hang on, because when you actually look at these numbers, and yes, there is this inequality and it has been there for some time, obviously, but when you really drill down, what you actually see is a lot of the inequality started growing worse in the 1960s. That was when they introduced welfare. And you'll recall the whole deal was you couldn't have a man in the house. You couldn't have a husband because it was meant for single women. Well, what did that do? It kind of ensured a generation and a future generation and another generation to be destined to poverty. I mean, this is when you started to see that wealth gap really, really grow. And it's continued. And so you got to ask yourself, what are we doing? Like, what are we not getting right here? We're bending over backwards to help people, and yet it's not working. Why isn't it working? Well, maybe because, as I said, it's not about checks. So William Darity, there down at Duke University, the economics professor that thinks you can cut a check for $14 trillion. $14 trillion is so much money. And one, we don't have it.
We're broke.
Two, it wouldn't be our generation that's paying for it. Not at all. It would be like, you know, the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. And I mean, you want to talk inflation. Now we're really talking.